Hey y'all, I'm Brittany Kelly, and welcome to The Journey Within. In these 8 episodes, I take you through 8 women's journeys. Always remember, be kind, because everyone you meet is on a journey of their own. Hey y'all, I'm here with Brandi Cyrus, one of my longtime friends here in Nashville, and we are sitting in her barn right now, and we're going to get to why we're sitting in her barn a little bit later, but Brandi, I want to thank you for being here with me and just having this conversation with me, and we're just super excited to dig in to your journey within.
I love it. Thanks for having me. I'm excited too.
Yes. And before we really dig in, I want to share with the audience just how I met Brandi and the gift that she really has of making people just feel accepted and loved. I moved to Nashville when I got married to Brian, my husband, who is a country music star. And I was 23 years old, and we were backstage. I don't know if you remember this, but we were backstage at an award show. Mm-hmm. And I was just feeling really out of my element. I was feeling a lot of social anxiety. I was kind of feeling a little bit of imposter syndrome too. You know, all these celebrities are like back here in this room. And you and I were both in this kind of holding room with all these people around. And I don't know how we connected. I just remember that we were sitting on this couch and we just got into like a deep conversation. And I just remember feeling like I could be myself in front of you, and that's just such a rare thing. I feel in life in general to find those people who you can just be yourself in front of right off the bat. And I remember we talked about horses, but I do not remember our whole conversation. And it just goes to show, you know, that quote that says, you know, you'll forget what people said, but you'll never forget the way they made you feel. And just right off the bat, you made me feel accepted. I felt like my guard came down, and I just felt embraced by you. And you invited me out to the horse barn with you and Casey Musgraves. Right. And I left there that night just feeling so much confidence and love from you. Aww. And I just want to thank you for that, because that was such a gift to me. And I'm sure you had no idea what I was going through, like mentally in my head. Yeah. But I was just feeling like super out of my element. And I just remember locking in that conversation with you. And I just felt accepted in that community. So
thank you.
Just want to thank you for that. Yeah. And we've done a lot of really cool things over the years. I mean, I was on the drive here and I'm like thinking we've known each other for almost 8 years.
I was literally just thinking, like, where has the time gone?
I mean,
that we met when you were 23.
Yeah.
It goes so fast.
And we've done really cool stuff. We've gone to Coachella together. Uh-huh. We've done, I've done the podcast with you and your mom.
That's right.
We've been at a bunch of different parties and red carpets. Mm-hmm. And
you've been out here before.
Yeah. Hung out at the barn. We've gone on the horse ride.
Uh-huh. Which is another good story.
Maybe for another time. But I kind of fibbed to Brandi the first time.
Kinda.
The first time we hung out at the barn, I was like, oh yeah, like I could totally ride horses. I'm so good. And she's like, okay, cool. Like hop on. Like totally thought I was a professional. And you were like, all right, let's do some cantering. And I'm like, perfect. I know what that is. Whatever. And then you're like, all right, I'm just going to do a couple sprints. And so next thing you know it, I'm just like hauling butt up this hill.
Honestly,
and I'm like,
no, you pulled it off. Like there was never one time that I questioned your riding ability or anything. And I'll say, like, I put a lot of people on horses that, you know, say they can ride, and like I really just don't know. But usually in the first 5 minutes, you can tell if someone really knows what they're doing or not. And I never questioned you. Yes. You're natural. Like I was never once worried.
I wasn't gonna let you know that I was worried either, but I was very worried. No, it was a good time. And again, like, you know, when I came out to the barn, I was nervous again, and I was, you know, feeling all kinds of ways because I hadn't found my place in Nashville yet. But again, right when I was in your presence, you just have this gift about you that just makes people feel accepted, and it's so cool about you. But I do want to dive into your story and talk more about you.
Okay, we must.
You have an incredible journey, an amazing family. Can you just tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how you grew up?
Yeah. You can cut me off if I start talking too much, but where do I start? I was born, actually, I don't tell people this, I was born in West Virginia.
Okay.
But my parents, my mom lived in Kentucky, and the hospital was just over the border. So I'm from a very small town called Ashland, Kentucky. It's just like on the eastern border there next to West Virginia. That's where my mom grew up. And we lived there until I was about 6 years old. And when I was 5 is when my mom met my stepdad, Billy Ray, who you've met and know. And he's from just the next town over. It's called Flatwoods, Kentucky. And they're both just, from really small towns. And my dad grew up really poor. I mean, his stories of he was literally living in his car before he got his record deal, really came from nothing, and met my mom, and they fell in love and moved us to Nashville. It was right around the same time that he did sign his record deal and put out Achy Breaky. And I mean, once we moved here, I just feel like my whole life changed, and I've lived here ever since. So it's funny that we're sitting here in Franklin, Tennessee, because I literally went to high school 4 miles down the road. That's awesome. At Franklin High. And once I graduated, I swore I'd never come back. And here I am. Here I am. But really comes full circle. But I mean, there's no other way to say it. I've lived a crazy life. And ever since I can remember, my dad has just been so famous, and it's all I've ever known. And I think one of the biggest things, or questions I get asked is how do you deal with that? How do you deal with how famous your sister is or how famous your dad is? And I just don't know any different. And I don't know if that's for better or worse. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But I think because of that, it's not like I had to make some transition into living in, in this limelight or whatnot that my family's in, because it's just been my whole life, And sometimes I think it was easier when I look at my baby sister Noah, and it's just been so different for her. And I don't know. I've always been so fortunate to have things like the horses in my life and my dog Astra. I just grew up with animals, and that's just always been such a constant for me. And they're such an incredible source of giving you self-worth and purpose and confidence and teaching you so much about yourself that I've just really never not had such a strong self-belief of who I am. You know what I mean? And I think that that's been so important, because there's been many ups and downs, and it is hard. It is hard to have a famous sister. It is hard to have a famous dad. But at my core, I know who I am, and I know my family loves me. And as crazy as we all are, we have such a strong bond, and we are so close. And that's another thing that I think has really just set us apart.
I bet, for sure. So let's talk about mental health a little bit. And I know you say you didn't know any different, but as you grew into a young woman, how was your mental health around that? Was your mental health ever affected from this spotlight? Did you have therapy as a kid? Was it talked about in your family? Was that word even spoken? Yeah. Or was it taboo?
No, I did go to therapy as a kid. Okay. And so another thing, I don't want to forget it, but another thing that I connect so much with you on is I know you were raised by your grandmother. And even though my parents were very much around and part of my life, my grandmother really did a lot of raising me. And there were years where both my parents were on tour, or when I was older, my dad actually lived in Toronto for 4 years filming a TV show, and I lived with my grandmother. And she was just such an amazing example of everything I ever wanted to be, and she treated me like I was her own kid, and so thankfully I had her as well, and she's the one that put me in therapy when I was very young, and my brother Trace too. There's 5 of us, and Trace is the second oldest. He and I are about 1.5 years apart, so we're very close in age, and she put both of us in therapy, and it wasn't because we were, it wasn't because of anything we were doing or not doing or feeling or not feeling. I think she was just hey, your life's nuts. Your dad's famous, your parents are gone. You should be in therapy, And so from when I was really young, I think I was fortunate enough to have that outlet and have somebody objectively to talk to about things that were going on, So when you ask about mental health, when I was younger, I would say elementary, middle school mostly. I mean, when your dad's that famous, and you probably know this just from being married to Brian to an extent, people either love you or hate you, and they're either going to be nice to you because they want something from you, or they think it's cool to be nice to you, or they're going to be mean to you because they're threatened by you. And not everyone, but that, when it comes to bullying, and especially at such a young age in elementary and middle school, I experienced a lot of that. And on the flip side of it, I had wonderful friends, and I had a wonderful group of girls that I was very close with all through school, which was great. But I did experience a lot of that the cool girls wanting to be friends with me because my dad was Billy Ray, or the boys bullying me because I was a dork and they were threatened by the fact that my dad was famous and the girls wanted to be my friend, or whatever it was. I'm sure there's a million reasons you could come up with for the way kids treat each other, but I think between being able to go to therapy and being able to talk about that at a young age, and also just having such a close-knit family where I felt like I could go home and tell my parents that stuff was happening. You know what I mean? And between those two things, like, I just think that made a really big impact on who I am as an adult.
Absolutely. How, like, what a blessing for your grandmother to, like,
Yeah.
have that awareness.
Yeah.
Even in a time, in my opinion, that getting therapy was kind of taboo.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
I know from where I came from, very small town, very similar upbringing, and, well, without the famous family, but it almost was like mental health was connected with mental illness. And did you ever feel that? Or when you were going to therapy, did you have that awareness that, people thought like, oh, if you go to therapy, like, you're ill, or did you feel just...
I think I definitely felt like embarrassed to tell anyone I was going to therapy, outside of my grandmother and my parents. Like, I don't really know if anyone knew I went. It's not like I went and told my friends, like, oh, in therapy today, we talked about this.
Right.
Whereas now as an adult, right, if you go to therapy, or there's so many, different ways that, like, I'm obsessed with, like, the Enneagram and personality tests, and when you learn stuff about yourself or why you are the way you are and why you do the things you do, like, the first thing I do is go run and tell my best friends, and it's like, oh my gosh, listen what I discovered about myself today, like, this is why I do this, and they're like, yeah, that's why you do that, and you talk about it and you share it. But back when I was a kid, like, I would have never ever told my friends, like, what was going on in therapy, much less that I went,
Is there something you could reflect on today and tell your younger self, it's okay that you're going, what, is there anything that you could reflect and just tell that little girl?
I mean, Brittany, I was such a dork in school, like, until I was honestly, like, 24. I think I was just the biggest dork ever. And, I was such a nerd, and my mom would always be like, you're never gonna get a boyfriend if you don't, like, get the hay out of your hair and get the mud off of your face. Like, I was just that girl. Like, I grew up and all I cared about was horses, and from the minute I left school, I went straight to the barn until I was forced to come home, and I did. I went to school with dirt under my nails and probably hay in my hair, and I was that kid, and I was such a dork. And so I think, like, I would just tell her, like, it gets better. Like, people's opinions and what they say just don't matter. And even to this day, I have to tell myself that, like, it sounds so cliche, but as you get older, you really care less and less about what other people have to say, And it's such a hard thing, like, to not be affected by other people's words, but when you have that self-worth and that confidence in yourself and who you are, their opinion matters less and less. And I think that's a really big part of becoming an adult and becoming a woman, is just letting it bounce off,
Yeah. I feel like that's something I would probably tell my younger self too, is like, who cares what people think?
Yeah.
Live your life.
Yeah.
Just be in that childhood, experience those moments, and, like, these people around you at this time, you probably won't even see them later in your life. You know, when you're young, you just feel like, it's your world and everybody's living in it and everybody's focused on what you're doing, when really everyone's so focused on their own selves.
Yeah.
That I feel like I would tell my younger self, like, just live it up. Just do you, be the dork,
Exactly.
love your horses, just be yourself, and, like, God's got a plan for everybody.
Absolutely.
And you just have to embrace that.
Yeah.
So in talking about, when you were in therapy, did you continue therapy, into your adolescence, like as a teenager and then into your adult, or was it consistent? Or?
I went pretty consistently. I went to therapy pretty consistently until, I would say, high school.
Okay.
Is probably when I stopped going. And I don't really remember if there was a reason or why I stopped, but what I kind of replaced that with was I took some psychology courses in school. Didn't you also study psychology?
I was a psychology major, yeah.
See, there's so many similarities here. And I just became so fascinated by that aspect of learning more about myself and why I'm the way I am, and why I behave the way I do or cope the way I do and all of that. And I just kind of dove headfirst into that. And I actually, I guess in high school, started working with someone that she kind of labels herself as a life coach instead of a therapist. And I would do workshops with her where, you know, you would, whether it's like take an online test or do this like written exercise or whatever, where you just like learn so much about who you are. And I just became so fascinated with that. And not that it's the same as therapy, I think it's different, but it's just like another aspect of, you know, like bettering your mental health, really. Because the more you know about yourself and why you are the way you are, the more confident you can be in who you are, I think.
Exactly. No, I love that. And I relate with the coach concept so much. You know, I was in therapy at 17 years old, all the way through, gosh, I guess up until probably 4 years ago. And then I actually signed on with my coach, Lori Jean, and she has this thing called the pivot process that you go through. But it really is coaching. Like, just like I were to go, like if I were to go to a gym and have a trainer.
Totally.
Or, you know, my husband has a vocal coach. It really does feel like coaching. And I feel like, you know, talk therapy is great. And it's a place that you can go and vent, you know, get diagnosed, you know, learn the terminology and the education. But with coaching and like life coaching, and therapeutic coaching in general, I just feel, I don't know, it's like you are being coached. It's like working out your brain. It's like, just like you would take care of your physical body, it's like now I'm going to be coached to take care of my mental. And like you, I learned a lot in college, and so I felt like I had the knowledge, I had the vocabulary, I knew all the terms, but I didn't know how to create the tools to like move forward to like a better consciousness, like a higher consciousness. And with coaching, and I'm not sure if you experienced this, but I feel so empowered.
Absolutely.
And I feel like I gain these tools that I have in my tool belt, and then I can actually apply those to real life situations. Versus sometimes in traditional therapy, it's like you kind of go and vent,
right?
And then somebody says, well, you have PTSD and you know you have anxiety disorder, and it's like, well, you know,
you're like, now what do I do about
I'm
that?
like, okay, so now I'm diagnosed, but I don't have any like actions to move forward from this. And my coach says this all the time, and she's like, we live in a world of overdiagnosed and undertreated humans.
Yeah.
And I love that you brought up coaching, because I feel like coaching is just so beneficial in that way. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like having that coaching at that time like set you up to like navigate life?
Absolutely. And when I kept working with her after I moved to LA, I guess I was 19 or 20 when I moved to LA, and I continued to work with her, and it was so crucial, especially then, because like I thought middle school was hard making friends. No. Moving to Los Angeles was so hard.
Yeah.
I lived there for 6 years and literally left with 2 friends, like people I would call friends. Like, it's very hard to meet people, connect people, very hard to find people that actually want to be friends with you for you and not, you know, use you or see what you can do for them.
Exactly.
And that was really hard for me, coming from somewhere like Franklin, where, you know, people are so great and it's so easy to make friends compared to California.
How were you feeling during that time? Were you feeling like down or anxious or?
Yeah, there were like a couple of years right when I first moved there that I was probably like the most down I'd ever been. And I don't think all of that was because of making friends. I think that was a part of it. I think a lot of it too was just I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, you know? Like as I grew up, like my parents were very strict with me about school and making good grades, and I was the smart kid and all that, and I think my parents loved that about me, that I was so smart and like so good at school, because none of the other ones were. But there was a lot of pressure with that. So once I graduated high school, I was just so burnt out on like the school thing, and I got into photography for a little bit, but it was just a hobby. It wasn't like I wanted to make my life photography. And for me, like, my life was horses, but again, that's a hobby. Like, it's not like I wanted a whole career out of that. So I really just didn't know what the heck I was doing. And I think that was a lot of why I felt the way I did in California. And then at the same time of me not knowing what I'm doing, you know, Miley's working her butt off on set and knows exactly what she wants to do and is being very successful at it. And my brother Trace too, he was in a band called Metro Station, and they were popping off and he was killing it and he loved it. And I was really at a place where I was like, what do I want to do? Like, I don't know, you know? And that was really, really tough. But having that life coach to work with me helped me so much, you know? And just to have somebody, too, that shoots you straight, you know?
Exactly,
like,
yes.
My parents do to an extent, but also, like, they're your parents, you know? Like, like you need somebody that's literally objectively going to say, not want to hurt your feelings or just tell you what you want to hear and say what you need to hear. And I really thrive on tough love like that. I've always been that way. And so I always need to keep somebody in my life that's going to do that for me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's life-changing to even hear. And, if somebody's watching this and listening to this and they're feeling stuck like that and in that age or in that season of life, what's something that you would tell them?
I think the biggest thing for me is to really understand that it's okay to not know. Like, it's okay to be in limbo. I think that's part of the journey. Like, you don't have to have all the answers. Not everyone knows what they want to be at 15 years old. And some people get to be many things. Like, it doesn't have to be one thing, And I think, like, in the world we live in, that's not really something that's, like, celebrated, I think people who are really great at one thing and really pursue one thing and are successful at that one thing are very celebrated. And people that may not know or maybe have, like, multiple interests and talents or do multiple things, like, that's not as glorified. But, like, why not? Why shouldn't you be good at more than one thing? Why shouldn't you enjoy more than one thing? I think that's okay.
What were some things during that time or even during different seasons of life where you were feeling kind of stuck or in limbo? What are some things that you were doing for your mental health? Like, were you exercising? Were you seeking out, horses in your area? Or were you, I know you got into DJing. Like, what were some things that kind of, helped aid your mental health in that limbo feeling?
Yeah, I mean, like, my life has been so up and down, and it's looked so different. I've done so many different things. I've lived so many different places, and I've experienced so much. The one constant thing are the horses. Like, I've always had that. And I think that's one reason why I hold on to it so tightly, is because it's been the only thing that's been consistent for me. And it sounds nuts, but I'm telling you, like, and I know because I know you love being around them, but there's just something about them that are so spiritually healing. And not only that, but they just bring you back down to like the ground. You know what I mean? Like, when you, for instance, like, for the past 3 weeks I've been on the road, and I've been in South America with Miley, where, like, thousands of fans are swarming our car, and we've got security guards taking us everywhere, and we're flying on private planes, and it's so glamorous, and it's so this. But then I come back home, and these horses bring me right back down to earth, and I love that. Like, I want to feel like I'm the same girl that I was when I was 9 years old out here riding horses. Like, I don't want to lose that, and they keep me so grounded, and they're almost like a mirror, the way they'll, like, literally tell you exactly who you are and what you're doing. Like, no bullshit, nobody's, like, gonna stroke your ego. Like, they're not gonna do that. They're literally gonna be like, no, this is who you are and this is what you are. And there's something so beautiful about that because they don't change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not gonna change because you are or are not a certain way. And I really love that about them. Like, that's something that attracts me to being around them is I don't even know what word I would call it, but it's just so real. Like, in a world full of everything, things that don't feel real and everything just feels so exaggerated, like, this is just so real to me. This is like what roots me in reality.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that, and I so relate with that feeling. And I feel like when I'm on a horse, I mean, realistically, you can't think about anything else. You can't check your phone. You can't answer a phone call. You really can't think about anything negative that's going on in your life or even what you're about to do after this, because you have to be so present in that moment with that horse, or that horse knows it.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's consequences if you don't.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think, too, like, they're so just aware of your emotions and what you're feeling. It's like, if you got on this horse right now and you were anxious or sad or something, like, they would feel that. And they're going to react to that, And so it's like, you may show up to the barn one day and not even know that you're sad, but you're going to get on the horse, and the way the horse acts towards you, or, like, once you're on, like, that's going to tell you that you feel a certain way, and you might not have even known you felt like that. You know what I mean? They're just it just is so revealing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a cool thing. And, like, I just don't know what else in this world can do that for me.
And even, like, I've watched you do it when we were, at the barn together, and, you get up early and you care for these animals. I watched you when we rode together. It's not like you just rode up celebrity status, got on your horse, and then left. Like, you were riding up to the barn, you were prepping your horse, you were doing the saddle, you were taking the saddle off, you were washing the horse. I mean, you were there and you were present, and it's just amazing to see, because I'm around a lot of, celebrities and people, and you could easily call the barn and say, hey, have the horse ready,
Thanks, Mel.
See, we're literally talking about cleaning up poop, and
Yeah.
he's giving, so you're gonna have to clean that up.
I'm gonna have to clean it up. Yeah.
But I guess my question is, like, beyond riding the horse, like, what does that do for your mental, like, knowing that you're gonna come down here and care for these horses? Like, does that help your mental?
I think that helps more than riding. And that's, what we put on social media, what I put on social media, or anybody really, like, when you think about someone that rides horses, all you think about is the riding part, and that's such a small fraction of it. Like, horse showing is a perfect example. When we compete, you're in the show ring for maybe 2.5 minutes.
Yep.
2.5 minutes. And the other 14 hours of that day are spent cleaning the stalls, cleaning the horse, prepping the horse, getting the horse out so they can stretch and move before you're going to go and jump these crazy jumps. Like, there's so much that goes into it. And I spend so much time. My competition horse, Star, she's not at this barn, she's at a show barn, but I'm out there 5 days a week with her. And I spend probably an hour, like, brushing her and massaging her. I use a Theragun on her to warm her up for rides. Like, she's so pampered. But doing all of that, I almost feel like that is does some more for your soul than anything, to just be like taking care of this animal that doesn't need you to do that. That doesn't, like, the horses don't even, like, this horse doesn't have to listen to anything I say. If the horse didn't want to stand in the cross ties, she could get out. If the horse didn't want me to get on her back, she could toss me in the dirt, and they choose not to, right? So, like, you have this insane, like, amount of respect between each other when you're working with the horse, and there's just something about it that is so calming and so healing. It sounds so cheesy. I just feel like it's, like, magical in a way. Like, it really is. Just to think that this huge animal connects with you on a soul level like that is just so magical to me.
It is. It's so magical. And, like, as you were explaining that, I'm, like, sitting here thinking, in a way, it's kind of, caring for this horse and, having all of this time that you care for it before and after, and then it just gets this one moment. That's kind of like our brains. I mean, it's like, if you're able to, step into a place where you can ask for help and get therapy and get coached and really dive in and work on yourself. And then you have these moments where you're meeting friends or you're meeting your possible spouse. Those are those 2-minute moments in the ring. And, like, the other 14 hours, parallel to what you said, is the time you kind of spend working on yourself and your brain.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I was kind of forced into therapy at 17. But now as an adult, I look back and I'm like, you know what? I would not have been the person I needed to be for my husband when I met him if I wouldn't have got in there and cleaned up the poop and prepped myself and learned and got the knowledge to, be a human being with the consciousness that I personally wanted. And that's kind of similar to a horse.
Absolutely.
You can't just hop on a horse and just roll off. You have to know the mechanics, and you have to learn the vocabulary. You have to know, the equipment.
And I just think doing all of the work, leading up to the moment, it makes the moment mean so much more and have so much more value to me. Like, if I just showed up, hopped on the horse, and handed it off to somebody, like, I don't really see the value in that, right? But when I put in all this time, all this work, blood, sweat, and tears to, like, prep this horse for us to go in together and compete and show everybody what we've spent hours and hours and hours working on, like, that puts more value in it to me. And at the end of the day, it's the value there that I think gives me the self-worth that I have. To know, like, I work my ass off, I get up, early, and I'm out there, and I'm doing it all myself, and I'm building this bond with this horse along the way, right? Versus just like, here it is, there you go.
Right.
Horses know, like, the horse is smart. It's gonna, the time you spend with it is gonna mean, it's gonna impact the bond you have when you get on the horse, the bond that you make with them on the ground. And the horses know that. And so it's like, what kind of value do you want in that? Do you want to just, like, get on the horse and it not know you and it not be able to feel your vibe and know your instincts and whatever? Or do you want to spend time with this animal so that when you get on its back, you're going to get on and it's going to feel you and it's going to instinctually know, how to communicate with you, and it's going to take care of you. That's the other thing. is I don't think people understand, like, you can truly build a bond with the horse. And I've had so many horses that truly take care of me and look out for me, you know? Even this new young horse that I have, like, she tests me a lot, and there's a lot of times where she's not looking out for me, but when I need her to, like, she has saved my ass more than once when I don't really deserve it. But it's that, I mean, I've had her for 2.5 years now, and we've built that bond, and I feel like when I really need her to the most, she'll step in and be like, okay, fine, I've got you. You know?
I love that.
And that makes it all worth it to me.
I absolutely love that. And again, like, as you're talking, it's kind of parallel to your brain. It's like, if you are able to put the work in and really reflect on yourself and who you are and what you want and what you stand for in life, it's like when you come to these challenging moments in life, you can trust yourself.
Yeah.
Because you've done the work.
Yeah.
You know? And I just think that's such a cool parallel, you know?
Yeah. And I think that carries over too to, like, your human relationships. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's easier with the horses. They can't talk back to you, right? Which is so nice. But I've learned so much, you know, about just working with horses of like how to relate to people and the patience that, you know, that you learn working with these animals, like, really comes in handy when you're dealing with somebody that's difficult, or you're in a fight with your best friend, or you're with your mom or whatever. Like, there are things you can take from your relationship with the animals that do translate it into human relationships, which, you know, as much as I love horses, the human relationships to me are like what make life worth living. Like, it's not your work, it's not how much money you have, it's not the clothes you have on, it's the relationships you make along the way. To me, that's what makes the world go around.
I love that. So, like, slight switch of gears here, but, you know, boundaries are very big in my life. And so I'm sitting here thinking about just how just amazing your life is, but also just how probably overwhelming it is. I mean, you could be anywhere in the world. You could be doing anything right now, and you're choosing to come back here to Franklin, be with your horses. Like, do you feel like you maybe consciously or unconsciously set boundaries in your life? And a boundary maybe being that, you know, I've got to have these horses in my life. I've got to have this activity in my life to keep my mental health to a certain degree. What are some boundaries that you feel like that you've incorporated into your life to protect yourself and to protect your mental health?
Yeah. I don't think I've always been great at boundaries. I'm such a yes person. I think part of that is just being the oldest of 5. Like, I've just said yes my whole life to whoever needs me and whatever they need. And I like playing that role in my family, and I like that they can all come to me, and when they need me, I'm there. But as I've gotten older, I've really had to learn how to say no sometimes and how to have boundaries, you know, for my own well-being. And it's hard. It's really hard for me, to be honest. It's really, really hard. But I've gotten better. And for instance, like, my mom especially just is constantly begging me to go back to LA. That's, you know, she mainly lives in LA, Miley and Noah too. And I love being there with them. I do. But I just need to be home sometimes, you know? And it's like when I'm gone, I was gone for 3 weeks. And when I'm gone like that, it's like I'm just constantly, like, to use this analogy or whatever, like, pouring my cup out constantly to other people, right? I'm like pouring out to my family when I'm with them. I'm pouring out when I'm performing at the festival and DJing. Like, I'm constantly just pouring out. And then I get to empty. And it's like when you're dying for thirst. Like, I need to come back and refill my cup. And this is what does that for me. And it's not always getting on and being able to ride. It's literally like I come back to this house and it's like my sanctuary, and I can look out my window and see my horses in the backyard, which has always been a dream of mine. And even just that simple thing of like coming home, being with my dog Astra, and looking outside and seeing these horses, like, starts to refill my cup, you know. And I need that to be able to continue to keep living the life that I live. And I love my life. Like, I'm so blessed. I'm so fortunate to have the job that I have and be able to travel and do the things that I do. But if I don't keep my cup filled, I'm gonna run out of gas, and like, and then that's gonna all be meaningless because I'm gonna feel like shit. And so I have definitely made a point and made a boundary that, like, when I need to refill that cup, like, I have to come home and have a few days where I can just do this, you know. And sometimes that means people getting mad at me for not answering the phone or not answering the emails, or, you know, not turning something in I was supposed to turn in. But sometimes you just have to say, sorry, I need to do this.
That's
you know?
right, yeah.
And understand that not everyone's gonna understand that.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me, you know, when I first got married to Brian and I was on the road. I'm like, none of my friends or family or people back home knew what I was experiencing, the overwhelming amount of just attention and just, you know, travel and all this that we were doing. And I felt like I had to set a boundary early on of like, it's okay, like you said, if you don't answer that call or get back to that person in time. And the people that really know you and know your heart and that you're supposed to be connected with know that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Some of my best friends in the world, I'm like, look, I may not talk to you for 2 months, but
Yeah.
we're gonna get together one day and we're gonna catch up, you know, for those 2 months.
And even if they can't understand it, they'll respect it. I think that's the biggest thing is like, I can't expect anyone to understand what I go through on a daily basis because you can't. Like, no one has the same life I have. No one deals with the things that I deal with. No one else has the same connection with the animals and you know, the land and all of this as I do. So I don't expect anyone to understand. I just expect them to respect it at this point. And then when I was younger, I didn't. Like, when I was younger, that would upset me that they didn't understand or they were mad at me or whatever. And as you get older, you start to learn, like, to care less about what they think.
Yep.
And the people that are supposed to be in your life will respect it. And even if they don't understand.
I love that. So just to wrap this up a little bit. So one of our sayings that we have on the back of one of our zip-ups, it says, everything is the teacher. Everything is the teacher. Do you really believe that? Everything good, bad, ugly that you've gone through, do you really feel like it's a teacher?
I do. I'm such a big believer in everything happens for a reason and that there's a purpose in everything. And sometimes that's bad stuff and hard stuff, you know, but it does. Like, if you look for it, there's a teaching moment in everything. The good stuff, the bad stuff, the highs, the lows. And all of those things, everything you go through, every decision you make forms who you are, you know, and makes you the person that you are. And just to think that, you know, anything that could have gone differently, you would be a different person, you know, and your life would look different. And I don't know, like, I call me crazy, but I just think, like, I was supposed to be here in this moment with you, doing what I'm doing in this place. Like, I truly believe I'm where I'm supposed to be. And so that, to me, like, that connects with exactly what you're saying. Like, everything's a teacher, everything happens for a reason, everything is, you know, happens to you because you're supposed to be where you are right now and who you are right now.
And I have another question for you, because, you know, going back to how you made me feel just embraced and like I could be myself, like, is there a trick to that? Like, do you just have that, you know, intuitively? Like, how would you give advice to someone who, you know, wants to make people feel just accepted right off the bat? You know, even if you don't even know them, and you didn't have to talk to me in that room. There was a million other people you could have talked to.
See,
you know,
there was something probably that gravitated me towards you because I knew that we were soul sisters, even though I didn't know. I believe that, like, whether it's energy or, you know, God or whatever you want to believe in and say it is, like, there was something that drew us to each other because we were supposed to be sitting here right now and be friends, you know. But I love that you say that, and it really means more to me than I'm probably letting on that you say that, because every time I go, whether it's I'm working a job or even if I'm just with Miley and I'm along for the ride or anywhere that I go and anything that I do, I usually say a prayer every day, just that wherever I am and whoever I'm with, that I can just, like, be a light to whoever it is and whoever needs it. And I don't think that always has to be, like, words that you say. I think it can just be your energy and the vibe that you're putting out around you. And I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty open book. I feel like I'm who I am. I'm not fake. I don't pretend. Like, even when we're on an award show, like, yeah, I'm going to play the role to an extent of who I need to be when I'm there, but I'm still me and I'm still going to be me. And I think when you put out that authenticity and that vibe of being open and accepting, like, then other people feel that they also, like, it's okay for them to do the same.
Yeah.
You know, I think, like, it's like, what's the saying where, like, treat others the way you want to be treated? Be real with somebody and they'll feel like they're comfortable enough to be real back with you. And, like, I think that that's a big part of it is, like, just be yourself, and then other people will feel comfortable enough to be themselves.
Oh, I love that. Well, I totally felt like I could sit down with you and just peel my mask off and just, like, laugh with you and just be silly. And I'll be forever grateful for that.
Oh,
and
I love that.
you just keep spreading your light around, and, you know, you, like I said, taught me something in that moment, and I can't imagine how many other people that you've, you know, maybe unconsciously taught that to, but that's just so special. And I just think people can learn a lot from just automatically making people feel very accepted and loved right off the bat, no matter your beliefs, or if you don't know them or whatnot. I just think that's super special, and it could lead to a connection that 8 years later we're sitting here chatting.
You just never know.
I know. So, well, thank you so much, and
Thanks, B.
thanks for just allowing us to come in your home. And now we're gonna go ride a little bit and get some fun pics.
Sounds
of you.
good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks. Love you.